Meetings, agreements, bilaterals, deals, and so much more. It's diplomacy at its peak. That's what the G7 summit is about, but not without some fun moments, some awkward greetings, some random wandering, and even a birthday celebration. Social media can't seem to get enough of these videos, so we decided to compile them for you. Take a look at the top viral moments from the 50th G7 summit.
It was a very long wait, almost excruciating, but the Italian Prime Minister took it like a champ. Giorgia Meloni stood patiently, fixed her hair a few times, inspected the signage, had a few laughs with the photographers, and even took a selfie with them. But there's only so much that you can do at the G7 entry point. 21 minutes later, her last guest finally arrived, Joe Biden. Aviators in place, he trudged along to greet Meloni. No one knows why the US president was so late. Maybe his driver took a wrong turn, or who knows.
Shouldn't leave a woman waiting for that minute.
Maybe it's just fashionable to be late to a party. But Meloni wasn't one to let it slide. Soon, bygones were bygones. The two leaders greeted each other. They exchanged kisses, they hugged, they posed for the camera, and it was time to leave. But Biden had to do a Biden. He shook Meloni's hands, and usually that's good enough. But the US president took it a step further. He saluted her. But it wasn't the only salute at the G7. It looks like Biden has made it his go-to form of greeting. He met Ukrainian President Zelensky, and what did he do? Well, salute again. Aye aye, Captain, the G7 is a tough ship to steer, and Meloni seems the best suited at the moment. Look at the other leaders, embattled at home, poor ratings, facing re-election. The resort they are staying in, Borgo Egnazia, has a motto: nowhere else. And right now, these world leaders would not prefer to be anywhere else, especially their own countries. With dark suits and solemn faces, they look like a class that has just been pulled up. Meanwhile, Meloni, in her pink suit, exuding the confidence of a class topper. She greeted leaders with full smiles and an Indian touch, a namaste. Well, maybe she should have stuck with that, because some hugs were longer than others. Greetings done, the class of G7 2024 huddled together, not for serious talks, but for some celebrations. It was German Chancellor Olaf Scholz's birthday, and what's a birthday without some singing, even if it's off tune?
Happy birthday, dear Olaf. Happy birthday to you. Yeah!
No cake though, because the leaders already have a lot on their plate. Once the singing was done, it was finally time for diplomacy. You know, the boring part of the summit. And someone seemed to doze off. No prizes for guessing who. Well, maybe Biden was just resting his eyes. But Zelensky wouldn't have it. He jumped from his seat to wake him up. But the most viral moment of this summit happened here, at the flag ceremony. It was the last event of day one. World leaders gathered under the setting Italian sun to see the spectacular display. And then there was Biden, shuffling away from the group, wandering off to speak to a parachutist. But Meloni would have none of it. She dragged him back and other leaders positioned themselves around him. Disaster was averted. Seems like these G7 leaders are like any other family. They're dysfunctional. They have tensions between each other. and sometimes they have to steer a wayward member back to the right way. But when it comes to the family photo, it's all smiles.
Fan of Italy's famous cuisine? Well, we are serving it with a side of diplomacy. As G7 leaders gather in southern Italy, Vantage is taking you to the heart of the action. What's the agenda? Who's invited? And how is Italy preparing for it? Catch the special edition of Vantage throughout this week, only on Firstpost. Fan of Italy's famous cuisine? Well, we are serving it with a side of diplomacy. As the G7 leaders gather in southern Italy, Vantage is taking you to the heart of the action. What's the agenda? Who is invited? And how is Italy preparing for it? Catch the special edition of Vantage throughout this week, only on Firstpost.